Good day to you one and all. It is I, Justin Hawkins, and this is Justin Hawkins Rides Again, my YouTube channel. You know that series, Stranger Things, where they have the town that's called Hawkins? It's brilliant. I'd love to live. Imagine if I lived there. Everyone would just think I was the mayor, wouldn't they? And they'd assume that I'd change the title of the town just to make myself feel more important, regardless of what the town's called. There's a song called Running Up That Hill by Kate Bush, which is featured in the soundtrack of this new series. And because it's been in that program, it's suddenly really successful again. In fact, it's more successful than I think any Kate Bush song has ever been before. So yeah, Running Up That Hill. Let's talk about that. Justin Hawkins rides again. Nearly missed the strings with that last flick. I was trying to take off the wristband from the artist wristband from the festival I was at the weekend, and then it took off half of my nail. I've got to get that to heal before this weekend because it's download weekend and we're playing there. Anyway, let's talk about Kate Bush. So Running Up That Hill was the first single from her 1985 album Hounds of Love, and it was written and produced by Kate Bush. Who else? This year the song received a new lease of life when it was prominently featured in season 4 of Stranger Things. I've never watched any of those Stranger Things. I started to watch the first series, and I started to get slightly annoyed because I realised that it was talking about a parallel universe where there's monsters. I mean, first of all, why would there only be one parallel universe, and why does it always have to be monsters in there? I just don't, Anyway, I'm sure it's a brilliant series. I know a lot of people really love it. Its appearance led to the song's resurgence on charts all around the world. The single entered the top 10 for the first time in New Zealand and in the United States. It's the first Kate Bush top 10 ever in the USA. So amazing stuff. For that reason alone, I love Stranger Things because I love Kate Bush, and I really think that whilst, I think everybody loves Kate Bush really, don't they? But there's one album in particular called The Kick Inside, which I think is an unsurpassed body of work. I really, really love it. Oh, you know what? I'm going to do an episode on that at some point, because it's a top to bottom bangers album. It really is. But all of her stuff's great and interesting, and it's just awesome that a new audience is now aware of it. Here's a theory as to why this is happening. Let's have a little look at the song itself quickly. I love this song. I'm probably paraphrasing here, but there was an interview when she was discussing what the song is actually about. And if I don't want to get this wrong, but I think it's about her sensual awakening. And she's talking about like gender roles and how it actually feels to be in an intimate tryst with somebody of the opposite sex, and trying to understand how they feel and trying to describe how you feel to them. And this whole exploration becomes a concept where she's sort of talking about making a deal with God to actually switch roles so that the two partners can understand each other and understand what happens in these moments. It's a really beautiful idea and gets a little bit surreal in places, but it's just to hear her singing about that and have that understanding of it. It's amazing. Apparently she wanted to call the song A Deal with God, but she wasn't allowed to. I think she was talked out of it by the record companies because some of the countries that she would be expected to have a hit with that song in, they just wouldn't play it. You wouldn't get on the radio. In France, Italy, I would imagine it'd be a slight issue in the USA as well. And I think that she was talking about making a deal with God because she thought it was more powerful than making a deal with the devil. So in a way, I think she had good intentions. It's funny how, again, I think I've talked about this recently in another one of my episodes, but it's funny how censorship can really sort of dictate the path that an artist is obliged to tread, really, just to be heard. What difference does it make? She's singing those words. Why can't the title be A Deal with God? You know, if that's what she wanted to call it, that's what it should be called. Anyway, that wasn't how it was. And who knows, a thing like that could make it more successful or less successful. It really depends, doesn't it? I mean, maybe the controversy of not being allowed on the radio would have made it a bigger hit, in the same way that, you know, the old parental advisory sticker on a compact disc in the late 80s meant that more people wanted to actually hear what was on it. Because people were offended by censorship, and I think actually in an instance like this, of course they fucking are. It's Kate Bush. Let her do what she fucking wants. She's a totally unique artist, like a gift that is unlike anybody else's. And for anybody other than Kate Bush to be dictating what a song is called is fucking criminal. Oh, sorry guys, I haven't had a lot of sleep and I'm kind of pissed off on behalf of Kate Bush. So I'm really pleased that now, thanks to Stranger Things, she's experiencing somewhat of a resurgence. Who's fucking beeping now? Sleep, that's all I need. Some people get pissed off when the younger generation latches on to an older song that they might know from their own youth, just because it's popular and trendy all of a sudden, and then there's a little bit of I was there the first time around. And I don't think it should be like that, really. I mean, maybe it's just from the perspective of being a parent. I just think it's wonderful when you see that sort of realization on a child's face that they're listening to something amazing. I mean, it doesn't have to be a child, just anybody who's not aware of something. I love sharing music that other people haven't heard before. I just think it's one of the greatest gifts you can bestow upon a person, is to show them a little bit of culture that they might not have been aware of before, and something that they're going to get great enjoyment from. So the idea that there's millions of people that are watching Stranger Things suddenly aware of, you know, a gateway drug into the full-blown Kate Bush fandom that the rest of us have experienced 30 years ago, 40 years ago, then yeah, it's awesome. There's another theory as well. When you actually listen to what's on the radio from a lot of sort of mainstream current artists now, I mean, it is... I think that the compositions are probably not... I mean, this is going to sound like old man shouting at the cloud thing.
Who's laughing now? Shut up!
So I don't apologise for that. I'm a dad rock enthusiast. I love dad rock. It's just great. And this is sort of dad... What would you call this? Dad art rock. Dad... I don't know. I always think Kate Bush is a little bit ahead of her time anyway. So let's call it a dad avant-garde pop. Yeah, let's call it that. But I think when you listen to the radio and then you got songs that go... Me, 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 me. And sometimes it can just literally be a bloke going, me, 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 me. He's not even saying words, he's just saying, me, 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 me. Just making a fucking sound, and then someone's put a beat on it, and because everyone goes, oh, I can make that sound as well. This would be great, yeah, I can do that. And then it becomes a hit. It's just completely saturated on the radio. You can't escape from it. And then you watch Stranger Things, and what you hear is a song from another decade when they actually wrote songs properly, and then you hear a performance by Kate Bush. Of course it's going to fucking resonate with you. Of course you're going to want to listen to that instead of the fucking shit that people make nowadays. And I'm sorry to say it. Not everybody makes shit. I mean, I've just covered a Panic at the Disco song, which I thought was brilliant, like a really great piece of writing. And there's stuff out there that is amazing, but the mainstream stuff that you hear on the radio 24/7, I would say 90% of it is shit. There's a percentage of it that's average as well. There's some really great stuff, a whole lot of sewage, and then some stuff that's average. And average, of course, is the mediocre. You know, the things that are neither here nor there. They're not quite shit enough to be shit, not good enough to be great. So, I don't know. It's the definition of average, isn't it? There's just, most things are average, I suppose. By definition. Yeah. Huh. So I think when something like this comes along and pops its head above the parapet, you realise that there's a whole world of amazing music in there that you just need to explore, and you have to look past the gatekeepers, or, you know, the people who determine what the playlists are for your local radio station. You have to try and tune out the noise that basically soundtracks our daily existence and look for stuff that's amazing. This is one of those songs, you know. Does it matter how you were introduced to the music? I don't think so. Do you guys think it matters? Use this comment section to decide. I mean, if you hear something, I suppose the only reason why it would matter is because you would end up with some sort of conditional memory. I think sometimes you hear a song that you haven't heard for a long time, and you might just remember the last time you heard it or the first time you heard it. I think that's called the primary effect and the recency effect. So the last time you, who knows? Anyway, there's some sort of emotional response that you'll have to it. It might speak to whatever it was you were going through at the time when you first heard it or last heard it. But apart from that, I don't think it actually matters. It doesn't matter where you hear it, does it? As long as you appreciate it, and everybody's happy, aren't they? But if you'd like to hear something that's a little bit more nuanced and makes you think and feel in a way that you might not be familiar with, then have a listen to Kate Bush. For some people, popular culture, is the only way they get to interface with music. How are you supposed to know of a classic hit if you haven't been played it before? Where do you start? That's a really good question, isn't it? It happens to me a lot. I hear something that my brother's playing or somebody I like, or I just hear something that it makes my ears prick up, and I recognise that it's not the sort of generic contemporary sound, and it makes me want to explore it. But I understand that not everybody has that sort of compulsion, the wherewithal, or the desire to actually, the inclination to go and explore new music, or in my case, old music. But the fact is, there is a staggering amount of music in the world. There's billions and billions of songs, and as I said before, 90% of them are shit. 10% of them are absolutely amazing. No, actually not 90%. 10% of them are just dreadful. 80% of them are average, and 10% of them will change your life. Change your life good. But yeah, these classic songs, if you haven't heard them before, where do you start? That's a really good question. I think in the case of Kate Bush, I actually think that what you need to do is start at the beginning, listen to it all, give it a go. I mean, that's the advantage of streaming services. I think you can just listen to everything without any actual, specific financial commitment to a body of work that you might just think, I wish I hadn't spent all that money on that obscure Kate Bush album. I mean, I don't actually think there'll ever be a time when that will be the case anyway. You should buy all of Kate Bush's albums as a matter of course. I certainly have. Hang on, where are they? I've got there's a really great box set called This Woman's Work, which has everything in it. Where do you start? Oh my God, where do you start? I think you start with parents, guardians, or the generation before. I think start at the 90s. Go 20 years back. Start at the 90s. Start at the beginning of the 90s. No, that's the noughties. Shit, go 30 years back. Beginning of the 90s. Have a listen through to some of that stuff. Because I think that a lot of the reason why stuff changes is because production techniques develop. And I think now, like things like nuance and subtleties, and even in terms of the sonic signature of a song, these things are less important if you're consuming your music on a telephone, or I suppose if you're using your phone to listen to stuff, it's going to be highly compressed and it'll come through a streaming site. So it needs to be a format that's easily transferable through the Wi-Fi or through data roaming, or from 3G to 5G. So a lot of the subtleties in the recordings are lost. So when that happens, there's no point in putting subtleties in the recordings in the first place, and the process changes completely. So you'll hear a lot of music in the charts that's probably just made on laptops, and that's all you need, But yeah, I think the Hounds of Love, that's a record that was made when there was such a thing as nuance, and also mastered much more quietly than modern records. Modern records, if you look at the waveform, it just looks like a sausage. The old ones were about half, the actual waveform is probably half as big, and you can see peaks and troughs, and you can see an actual variation in the dynamics of the song. But these days everything's super compressed because it sounds louder on your phone, and then you're more likely to be able to hear it when you're listening to it on a train. and pissing everybody else on the train off, as it were. So yeah, it doesn't really matter how you come across these things. There's no shame in it, and I'm sure Kate Bush isn't complaining. She wouldn't have agreed to having her song in that series in the first place if there wasn't a possibility that something like this might happen. So it's amazing for her. It's amazing for people who weren't aware of it before, and it's just great for music, isn't it? Because something brilliant has emerged and is showing everybody how it's actually done, how we used to do it in the olden days. I say we as in person kind. I mean, I was 6 years old when this record first came out, I think. No, I was 10. Anyway, lots of love to you guys. Kate Bush, it's amazing. Justin Hawkins writes again. Enjoy, like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, and watch one of these 2 videos. Nice one.